Welcome to Xhibition, an Xbox podcast, episode number 7. My name is Samuel Adams, and I have a wonderful show for you all this week, not because of me, but because of who I am joined by. This week's guest is none other than Luke Lore of the Xbox Expansion Pass, and we have a wonderful conversation that ranges from E3 2021 to the future of Xbox, and now that we've hit the 6-month mark in this new generation of Xbox, how is Microsoft doing? We're discussing games, we're discussing hardware, we dig into cloud gaming, and so much more. It's a wonderful conversation with a very insightful guy. If you don't already subscribe to the Xbox Expansion Pass, you absolutely should. It's one of my favorites on a week-to-week basis, and Luke does a wonderful job lining up interviews, sharing very insightful information, and just in general being a very cool host. Enough from me, let's go ahead and dive into it with Luke Lore of Xbox Expansion Pass on today's episode of Xhibition, an Xbox podcast. No, but yeah, you can just go ahead and dive in and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started doing podcasting, and about the Xbox Expansion Pass.
Oh man, well, that's a lot to take in. I am thrilled to be with you here on Xhibition. It is a pleasure to be in your first 10 episodes, so thank you for that. As far as my podcasting history, that goes back a long ways. I podcasted quite a bit when I spent time as a freelance journalist in the soccer world, sports world, covering North American soccer, Major League Soccer, things like that. And then took a long break, and my love for video games has been lifelong. And I began co-hosting on a show called The Xbox Drive, which is still going strong, hosted by Sean Capri and Ryan Turford. I worked with Sean for about a year. We visited E3. We podcasted through all of that. And then eventually we parted ways, really because we wanted to do different things. I wanted to have a show more like what I have now with the Xbox Expansion Pass, and I'll be glad to talk about that. And he wanted to have a more silly, kind of fun show. And if you don't know, Xbox Drive is a show where one of the people is in a car driving around, and that's kind of the shtick, and it's a fun one for sure. But I wanted to make XEP. I wanted to interview developers, actors, podcasters, content creators, journalists, people that had impact on the industry wherever it was. And so I created the Xbox Expansion Pass. I believe it went live in, I want to say, August of 2019. I'm approaching my 87th official episode with a few bonus episodes here and there, and I'm thrilled to know that it's going strong. I'm quite proud of it, for sure. It's something that brings me a lot of joy, and it's strictly hobby. It's not something that I have career aspirations for, and so it's consistently a reminder to enjoy gaming, talking about gaming, and not make it work.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the things that sticks out to me about the Xbox Expansion Pass and how you kind of conduct yourself is that you can just tell the amount of passion that you have. And you talk to developers of all shapes and sizes. A lot of games I've discovered are coming to Game Pass through your show. Just because, these developers, they aren't normally those that are in the spotlight. And like you said, the Xbox Drive is another one that we were discussing before the show, how I've just been diving into all these Xbox podcasts. But what they have on the Xbox Drive is, while it's different than XEP, they both work so well. And so it's just so cool to see so many people in the Xbox community really diving in and sharing their voice. And just kind of, sharing the love of what Microsoft is doing and of gaming in general, because it's not just about Xbox. It's just a smaller part of an even larger place.
It's really neat because all things considered, there were not a lot of Xbox podcasts 4 years ago, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago. You had Unlocked, you had a few of your major ones, but beyond that, the list was short. And the excitement and the energy that is now surrounding Microsoft and Xbox in particular is really encouraging, as many of us went through the dark times, the Xbox One launch and things like that, in which I was not a part of the Xbox community at that point. I was a strong 360 guy, made the jump to PlayStation because they were treating their customers better. I often say that I will go where my dollar is valued most, and I will stick by that. I go where I feel like I'm most appreciated as a customer. And my love for gaming is not limited to any one brand or title on a plastic box. And I often talk about that with many of my gaming friends. Xbox is the beat I cover. It's what I enjoy at the moment right now more than anything. But my gaming love extends well beyond the brand. And I mean, I often joke because when I podcast about Xbox, it's my PlayStation 5 that if the lighting's right, that's the one you can actually see in the background, which is amusing.
Yeah, I see it. I see it menacingly peeking around the corner there during the Xbox show.
It's huge. It's so big.
Yeah, I
can't hide it anywhere.
I haven't had my chance to get my hands on a PlayStation 5 yet. I don't really feel compelled at this point in the generation to really seek one out, because I think when God of War drops, that's when I'll probably try and hit the ground running and really pick one up.
Sure.
But with the Series X, I mean, it's no small boy either. You know, it's pretty chunky as well.
It sure is.
But yeah, people are just so passionate right now about Xbox, and it's like what you were discussing on your most recent episode. I actually had you in while I was on a jog about 20 minutes ago.
Nice, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's just one of those things where, sorry, I hit the mic. It's just one of those things where the amount of excitement around not only Xbox, but gaming in general is, or I should say Xbox's place within gaming in general, is something that we haven't really seen since, I'm looking back to even Halo 3 on the Xbox 360, where it's just around Halo Infinite specifically after the showcase last week. And we saw this, you know, in my mind, it's almost like a remaster of what we saw last year. But it's just crazy to see how Halo Infinite has improved so much and how the Xbox brand has boosted itself over the past year and a half, 2 years, even looking back to 3 and 4 years with the last generation. It's a super exciting time to, number one, talk about Xbox on shows like this and others. But on top of that, just to be a part of the ecosystem. And no matter how you play, you've got a really good generation lined up.
One of the things that I often think back to about the Xbox One generation and the leadership change that took place at Microsoft, everybody talks about Don Matrick and Phil Spencer, and that's quite appropriate, right? They were figureheads of their times. But when Phil Spencer took over, he shifted a lot of people on his team around, and he's always quick to appreciate his team, and I am thankful for that, because there was a lot more than just him. He's a wonderful, wonderful icon in gaming, but the team is far more extensive than just Phil Spencer. And as a group, they collectively decided what they needed to fix, and they began doing so. They course corrected on backward compatibility. Then they followed up with hardware, multiple revisions of hardware. Then they had to get services in line. Then they had to continue working on IP, and they took a short and long approach there. They repaired some of their IP that had launched with troubles, all the way back to ReCore getting a definitive edition. But really, I'm talking about State of Decay 2 and Sea of Thieves, launching in one state and existing now in a far more superior state. And you could even cite Master Chief Collection for that same reason. And then it was a matter of just building momentum and bringing in the right people, the right ideas, and having a healthy mindset with initiatives like Play Anywhere, which was really the first example of cross-buy, cross-play, cross-progression, cross-everything, and that led to so many more discussions, because Sony had dabbled in that with their Vita and PS3, but it was not nearly where Microsoft was taking it, and they took head-on the idea that if you buy a game on PC, you can have it on Xbox and vice versa, and that was probably very scary, but that mentality has brought them to where we are now, where in a game showcase in 2021, beneath the announcement, or beneath the list, where beneath the title where you would see the consoles, Xbox Series S, Series X, PC, xCloud. 3 ways to access a game to play any way you want, anywhere you want. And that's a really forward-thinking initiative that, had they asked me, I'd have been like, I don't like that. I don't know. And clearly they've got some good people in the know over there.
Yeah, it's a super risky business move to do what they do today, not only with the cross-play and the Play Anywhere functionality, but on top of that with Game Pass. And we'll talk more about all of those games and give an overview. Obviously, people have been talking about E3 a lot and with the Xbox game showcase, so we won't go too in-depth unless you want to. But I think that a good example of a company that's kind of in a halfway point right now, where they want to do what Microsoft did, but it is just such a big financial risk, is with EA. You know, you look to Battlefield 2042 and where that's like the perfect Game Pass game, or even just the perfect EA Play game on day one. And as of right now, it's just they aren't 100% in on putting this year's big flagship game out for everyone, just for those with a subscription. And so companies are looking at what Microsoft is doing, and it's making a difference in their business, and it's really shaping the future of how the industry perceives how games are shipped, how games are presented to players. And I think that, we hear a lot of talk about choice. It's all down to how the player wants to experience games, whether that's a $70 one-off purchase, whether that's a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, or even just a Game Pass for PC or console. It's all about choice this generation, and that's super cool.
All about choice, all about variety, and trying to invite people in to play more games than they otherwise would have. And what's comforting about that is that the data shows that is quite effective, right? People are still purchasing games even if a game launches into Game Pass. And we have recent examples of that, as recent as Outriders, which is a game I really enjoyed my 30 hours in. And anybody that's critical of the end game is right to be critical of it. But I got 30 hours of enjoyment out of it and moved right along, and Game Pass gave me the option to do just that. And meanwhile, in that same vein, lots of players were discovering a looter shooter that they really liked, and they liked a lot of the things it was doing. And I also think Game Pass has given new life to the idea of games that you might not have gotten before. Perhaps a sequel to Dishonored at some point down the line, The Evil Within 3 or Wolfenstein 3, games or sequels to games that were critically successful, but maybe didn't hit commercially the way those companies wanted to. We even recently saw Prey get a lot of love as it launched into Game Pass that it didn't get in its time for any number of variables. And I'm using Bethesda examples right now because they're just easy to point to, as they're all finding success in this newfound energy around them. It's great. It's exciting. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, Bethesda was a big part of the Xbox Game Showcase. But before we dive into that, I do want to have the kickoff question that I sent you earlier, and you touched on it just a moment ago. What's the best game, or your favorite game, or a game you discovered on Game Pass that you probably wouldn't have otherwise found, played, or, found enjoyment in the way that you did had it not been included with the subscription?
Oh my gosh. So I hate this question, not because I don't have an answer to it, but because I have too many answers to it. Game Pass has done a lot for me. My first answer, I think, would be Sea of Thieves. And while I probably would have played Sea of Thieves regardless, because at the time I was on an Xbox show, I played Sea of Thieves in Game Pass, was not thrilled with my experience there, and kind of left it. I just kind of left it. I didn't have to pay for it. Didn't hurt my wallet or anything. I see that this is kind of neat, and then I just moved on. But as that game grew and evolved over time, Game Pass, because I had a subscription to it, could welcome me back into that game to try at really no big loss except for time. And now you fast forward to I'm a Pirate Legend. I've maxed out both plunder passes. I've been playing this game since 2019, maybe a little bit, maybe late 2018, early 2019, and then I've got a full crew because I was playing just solo, and gradually added friends to that group. Sea of Thieves is a very special game that you cannot understand if you've played it once. You can't understand it if you've played it twice. But beyond that, there's a lot of joy to be had there, and it's a much deeper world than the art style would allow. And what I was doing as you were speaking a moment ago was pulling up the Game Pass list as it currently exists, and there's a lot of games in here that I could just wax poetic about that are just very high quality that people should try out that maybe they didn't. Carry On is a good one. That was a 2D one from Devolver Digital, which you were the monster. And you were haunting things. Call of the Sea is a very different game than that, and you're in this Lovecraftian mystery, and you're trying to discover what's going on in the island. I played Blair Witch, which I never would have purchased. Bloober Team horror game, very talented, but I don't do horror, and I really liked Blair Witch. That was a fun game to play. There's so much, Sam. I could just go on forever about it. I will say that anyone and everyone, you have the option to play my favorite game of last gen, perhaps not the best one, but my favorite, and that's Arkham Knight, and the entire Arkham collection trilogy is in there. I don't believe Arkham Origins is in there, but the entire trilogy is in there from Rocksteady, and those are just masterpieces through and through.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a huge Arkham Knight guy too. That came out the summer that I was graduating high school is when that game hit, and that was just
Jesus.
my game of the summer right there. That was.
You are so young.
Oh, I'm 24. Yeah, no, I'm just out here getting started.
Ooh. Oh, you're a youngin'. You could have been in my classroom, man.
I could
I
have
look.
indeed.
That's crazy.
But yeah, Arkham Knight's a great addition to the lineup. And while it's not necessarily my cup of tea, the Yakuza games, I think I said that correctly. The
Mm-hmm.
pronunciations always go back and forth. But with the additions of Like a Dragon, that's one that a ton of people have been diving into. Out of all of the
Mm-hmm.
Game Pass games that I've played over the past, I would say 6 to 8 months, my girlfriend and I have been starting Minecraft Dungeons. And that
Great.
is completely out of anything that I would normally play. Minecraft,
Yeah.
not my thing. Really, that kind of dungeon crawler experience, not really my
Mm-hmm.
cup of tea. I dive into Minecraft Dungeons in the past month and a half. It has been the game that I've spent the most time with. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that I would have spent the money to pick that one up had it not been on Game Pass. But now I'm looking, I might buy some expansions the next time they're on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with Forza Horizon 4. I'm not a big racing
Yeah.
guy, but
Yeah.
last December I had a lot of downtime at work, and I thought, hey, every night I'll check out some Forza Horizon 4. And then I ended up
Mm-hmm.
buying the giant, expansion pass when it was on sale during the Christmas sale, and I've probably put over 100 hours into it, and I'm super pumped for
Yeah.
five. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really how Game Pass expands the genres that people might be
Mm-hmm.
interested in as well. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, no, those are great choices, and Forza does such a good job at reaching multiple audiences. The sim audience has enough there to get them through to the next motorsport, and for people like myself, and it sounds like you as well, there's a lot of casual arcadey fun to be had. That's not just throwaway arcadey fun. There's some fun, good experiences to be had, and they play with it just enough to where I don't feel bogged down. And to anybody listening, if you've not played the Halo mission in Forza Horizon 4, it may not be the best race in there because that game is just god tier, but that is my favorite. I love that race.
That
So
that
good.
Halo crossover was unlike anything else. I went into Forza Horizon 4 just wandering around, not searching for anything to do, but just hitting random missions. And so it was a
Hmm.
complete out of left field surprise when all of a sudden I'm driving a Warthog, and it's, you've got the
Hmm.
Halo music playing, and it's just this high octane energy. You've got all these, ships coming in overhead. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. I back that one as well.
Yeah.
But we mentioned Forza Horizon 5. Let's talk about E3 2021. Give me the overall thoughts on the Xbox show. As a fellow Xbox fan, how was your perception of how Microsoft brought themselves and presented what they had to show during E3?
Really and truly, a wonderful showcase, a wonderful set of showcases, and it kicked off even before E3 when they had. I don't know an executive meeting where they publicized it was meant to go out to press only, and then they sent it to everybody. But the idea was they had Satya Nadella, the leader of Microsoft, the head of Microsoft, the $1 trillion company, not just the Xbox division, and several other kind of corporate leaders from Microsoft discussing the future of gaming and what they were trying to do with the Xbox division, not just hardware, not just software, not just services, but how they would all work cohesively. That kind of kicked off the season, and it put everybody in a great mindset to see this guy who's in charge of trillions of dollars of business wearing a Halo shirt. And that's, a lot of people point that out, but it's really the metaphor involved that this guy put on a hoodie and believed in the product when not 5 years ago there were discussions about, should we fold Xbox? It's just not doing what it's supposed to. And they've really doubled down and offered a lot of confidence going forward about what their plans are. And then to combine two showcases, because Bethesda has been doing their own showcases, to purchase Bethesda and then decide to do a joint conference inside of a 90-minute window and have variety appeal to people in a post-pandemic year or current pandemic year, I suppose, given the rate of vaccinations. But there is just a lot to praise them on, and then follow that up with, they had the Game Showcase Extended, which did exactly what I was hoping they would do, give deeper dives on certain titles, but not bog down the show proper with that. And so I was just through and through applauding cheerful, excited. We didn't see too much Phil Spencer. We didn't see too little Phil Spencer. We didn't see too much of Sarah Bond, too much of Pete Hines or Todd Howard or any other voice that was on stage. It was the right amount. They respected the diversity of their catalog. They recognized the gaps in their catalog, and they filled those with third parties and indies. Really and truly, I was quite pleased and impressed, and easily Xbox One E3, though admittedly, Summer Game Fest and the smaller conferences by Ubisoft and Square Enix, etc., did not impress. But I was just so happy, and I would put that Xbox show next to I want to say it's the 2016 Sony conference, in which we got God of War, I believe, and a few others. It was just among the best, and I was very impressed and pleased.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this was the best Xbox showcase that we've had easily in the last 5 years or more. I mean, it's up there with one of the top 3 of all time from the Xbox team. I really do believe, just because, like you said, the announcements just kept rolling. And if you want to go to the blog, we've all seen the blog where it gives you the rundown of all of the games that were discussed. In terms of presentation, I echo what you said, where there wasn't a ton of discussion. There have been plenty of showcases in the past, in regards to the main showcase, I should say, where it is just 45 minutes of an executive on stage talking about the game, and they're talking about what the team is doing. But you can talk about a game all day. That hasn't shown me the game. And it's seeing the game and at least getting some eyes, if not on an in-engine trailer like we saw with Starfield, an extended look in the extended showcase and a brief look during the show itself of Forza Horizon 5 in the wild. And it's not the discussion that people are going to talk about on social media and on podcasts like this and other shows. It's the gameplay. That's what really speaks to the final experience you're going to get and the value that these games are going to deliver. And I think that by skipping the discussions and saving those for the show hosted by Paris Lilly a couple of days later, whenever they had the spotlight on them at the most important time, Microsoft took advantage of it in the best way they possibly could have. And I think it was great.
They also did a good job at showcasing what was important in the short term, the near future, this year, 2021, and then offering healthy promise for 2022 and beyond. And that, I think, was a very carefully calculated move by everybody involved, and it really seemed to pay off, because after the showcases, we were seeing images go out, and I pulled them up again while you were speaking. They did a great job at saying, all right, here's what's happening June, July, August, September, fall, holiday, and just pinpointing how many titles are dropping day and date into Game Pass. And it's staggering. It started with Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance just a few days ago at the time of this recording, and it is not going to stop. It is not going to stop. There's plenty of stuff coming in July. I'm thinking about Microsoft Flight Simulator and The Ascent. And August is jam-packed with Psychonauts and Hades, 12 minutes. And it just keeps going from there. There's so much to look forward to, and that's just in 2021. And I thought they really, to shift gears briefly, they respected the time of those fans that were probably former PlayStation or PC fans that were there for the Bethesda showcase. They respected those fans a lot. They got a lot of Starfield. We saw a lot of what was going to be coming for future content from Bethesda outside of Starfield. I think there was a lot to look forward to, even if you did not show up to that showcase because it was Xbox. And we saw evidence of that as well. That energy, units were selling out faster than before for Series S and X, with more on the way. Even reports, and this is just nuts to me, substantiated reports, mind you, I don't mean rumor mill, that the Xbox Series S is doing incredibly well in Japan, of all places. And that is so encouraging and so alien to be able to say. Multiple generations of Xbox. We're in the 4th version, and it has never done well in Japan. So really cool. A lot to celebrate, and they should be hanging their hats for a great diverse showcase.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the interview that came out on, I believe, Polygon a couple of days ago with, I want to say Peter Wise, I think is the name. The article is by Nicole Carpenter, but it was all about diversity in games and creators and studios, and in the way that the community is treated at Xbox. And I think that
Hmm.
shines through in the games that were shown off and that are coming to Game Pass. Because like you, I've got the article pulled up after the show went
Hmm.
offline, where you have everything from Yakuza Like a Dragon and Dungeons and
Hmm.
Dragons Dark Alliance to your Forza Horizon 5s and your Halos and your Psychonauts,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
huge third-party support as well. Two that I want to discuss with you, obviously, are Back for Blood. I want to get your take on that one. And then
Hmm. Sure.
Hades coming to Game Pass. That's a huge
Yeah.
win for me, somebody who has friends with a Nintendo Switch. I don't own one personally, but Hades is a game that I've been dying to get into, and obviously, definitely jumping in on day one when it launches in August.
I'm thrilled that Hades is coming. I've heard so many people tell me how great that game is, and that's awesome. It looks incredible. I was never going to pick up my Switch for that. I've actually been very disappointed with my Switch in the last 2-3 years. After that first year, it didn't entice me, just despite a couple here and there. It didn't give me kind of what I was hoping it would. And so Hades languished on the Switch for me, and I never really got into it. So I'm really excited to see that. We thought we might have been getting it a few months ago. Twitch Gaming, unfortunately, kind of had it in an image promotionally in error. And they apologized for it, which was good. But to see confirmation that it is coming the 13th of August, I know a lot of people are going to be checking it out. The game's beautiful. The game's beautiful. It was winning Game of the Year awards, and it's the right type of game for Game Pass people like myself who were on the fence before. Now there is no question. I will be playing and trying Hades with no loss except for a few minutes of time to find out if I like it or not. So I'm stoked on that one for sure. Back for Blood. I want you to start off with that one if you don't mind, Sam. Tell me real quick. Are you a Left 4 Dead fan? I mean, you're so young now that I know this, and I'm shocked at it.
You're gonna
Did
hold
you
it over
play
my
Left 4
head
Dead?
now that I'm just but a young buck in the podcasting and Xbox space, aren't you?
You know, I'm going to pretend like that's what it is, but really it's the revelation and the realization that I'm just getting older. I have students that message me that are, well into college and graduating college, so it's like, oh, all right. Cool. Good on you. Yeah.
I mean,
So tell
you're
me,
what? You're what? 23, 24 yourself?
yeah, right. I'll be 36 this year.
Oh, you look
36 this
great,
year.
dude. Like not to get
Thanks,
not to
man.
get sidetracked from the Xbox conversation, but I would have totally guessed you were like 26.
I appreciate that. I get that often. That is a wonderful compliment sometimes, and other times I'm like, it just depends on where I am and who I'm with. But thank you. But yeah, I want to know, man. Did you play Left 4 Dead? Was that a in your realm wheelhouse?
So Left 4 Dead was very big in my friend group in probably late middle school or so. It's one that everybody knew about and kind of grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on PlayStation 3 at the time whenever this game was big
Mm-hmm.
on Xbox 360. So it's not one that I was able to experience at its peak. Of course, with Turtle Rock, you saw the Evolve game that came out. It was well received, but the player base wasn't there to support it in the long run.
Right.
And for years, I've said that if Evolve had been around when Game Pass was a thing, would have been a totally different story with Evolve, I think,
Sure.
as well. But Left 4 Dead is significant because it was picked up very heavily in the YouTube community. And of course, whenever you're in middle school, high school, YouTube's a big thing you pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So Left 4 Dead mods were very popular discussions, and it kind of has that same air of not necessarily Gary's mod, but it's up there with like your CS:GOs and these big games that everybody
Mm-hmm.
kind of kept track of. And so I think that there's a legacy there. And to see Back for Blood, I mean, we all know what that means. Like, we all know the
Sure.
experience you're going to get. And I think that for people that have now grown up, we were just discussing about how, time's rolling on by. I've graduated college in the workforce. You're a teacher and a successful professional at that.
But thank you.
But life has moved on, but this gives
Sure.
me the opportunity to go back and replicate that experience that I had with my friends when I was younger and get back into that co-op zombie slaying action. And so to answer your question directly, yeah, super relevant for me. And I think that with it being on Game Pass, this goes from a game that I might have picked up if, things had been looking good whenever the game launched and I had some money to throw around with it, probably would have gotten it. Now, downloading, preloading, day one diving in for me for sure.
Awesome. I'm thrilled to hear you say that. And at the risk of a self plug, this past week of the Xbox Expansion Pass, I had on Chet Falishek, who is working on the Anacrusis, which you may have seen at Summer Game Fest or the Game Showcase Extended. He worked on Left 4 Dead, and that's why I bring him up. He worked on Left 4 Dead, and the Anacrusis is kind of a take on that. And I have such fond memories of playing Left 4 Dead's 1 and 2 and the co-op experiences that are involved. I played a lot of solo. I play a lot of co-op games solo for fun as well. There was a horror element to it. And it has this element called the director that adjusts the difficulty, not in making enemies stronger or weaker, but in where to place enemies, where to place health, where to place weapons, what types of weapons. And to see the evolution of that and to hear Chet talk about that really has me excited for a bunch of the co-op shooter games that are coming out throughout this year. It started with Second Extinction hitting early access. That one didn't really land with me, but then we see the Anacrusis, we see Aliens Fireteam, which I'm very excited about, and Back 4 Blood will have a special place in my heart. And no matter what I was going to be playing and purchasing that game, purchasing it if it hadn't been in Game Pass, now that it's in Game Pass, my dollar is saved and I can check this one out. I'm thrilled to see how they've decided to evolve this system. And pardon the pun on evolve there. But,
I was going to say, wow, you really went for the low hanging fruit there, didn't you?
I didn't mean to. Sorry, Charlie. But I want to see what they do to make these systems modern, because I go back and play Left 4 Dead 2 now, still a blast, but other games have been around since then, adapted this kind of moving through a horde element. I mean, I'm thinking about World War Z, which is third person Left 4 Dead in modern times with modern AI, and it's great. That was in Game Pass for a good while. I don't know if it's still there, and that's well worth your time. So I want to know what they do with Back 4 Blood going forward, because there's a lot to look forward to there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm looking forward to Back 4 Blood, and like you said, there are so many other games that are similar in nature to it. And like you, I'm not really a big co-op guy. Normally I just play solo because I'm a weird player where I don't really stay up late and play. I'll get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and get my game time in before work, because that's whenever I'm at my best. I can get those peak headshots at 5:15 in the morning.
Right with you. Right with you.
As my friends and my fellow players are logging off, I'm hitting the Xbox on button and just getting going. But it's super exciting just to see that these games are coming, and for those that are super into co-op experiences, Game Pass affords the opportunity for you to be able to play with all of your friends, because if they have Game Pass, then you're good to go. And of course, Back 4 Blood is doing the expansion system where if one person owns it, everybody can play it. So for anybody that dives in and plays Back 4 Blood, you can just enjoy the game with all of your friends if you have Game Pass, and you can really get the most experience that you can possibly get through just diving in. And again, like you said, it's no additional cost to you. You get to save your dollar and really see what that game has to offer. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
So we mentioned Bethesda a moment ago, discussing, the E3 2021 Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase. How do you think so far, roughly 5 or 6 months after the big announcement and a few months after the merger itself, with Xbox's messaging 6 months after the launch of the Xbox Series X and this Bethesda story that's come into play and the merger between these two companies, how do you think all of that is shaking out? The player reception, the way the future is shaping up for Xbox, the general vibe around that?
It almost could not be better. And again, it's weird to say that. And I want to be very clear. This is not self-serving because I do an Xbox show or meant to sound in any way fanboyish, which is an easy trap to fall into in content creation. with the exception of their faux pas of nearly raising the price of Xbox Live and then kind of going back on that within 24 hours and course correcting, rightfully so, by the way, Xbox Live Gold should not be expensive or even a thing any longer. With Game Pass existing the way that it does. Beyond that, their messaging, their social teams, the way they've gone about making decisions from the leak of the Xbox Series S in the middle of the night, which won awards, their meme reaction to that won awards, which is awesome. It has been nearly perfect. They balanced their deal with Bethesda and showcasing Bethesda titles well. They, with words bigger than Sarah Bond was on stage, it said Starfield will be exclusive. And they could not have been more clear on that, despite, a few websites pretending that it wouldn't be. They've done a very good job at setting expectations with a few very small slip-ups here and there in 2020, which I think I and many others might forgive them for, because the teams were trying to figure out what they could and could not do in a work-from-home environment, and it had not yet been established how much could be productively done by the studios and developers at home. So apart from a few slip-ups in 2020, the social teams have done a fantastic job. And on the development side, I could not heap enough praise on the decision to delay Halo Infinite. I was devastated. I rarely make Twitter videos, but I made a Twitter video on that one because I was very upset. Halo is my jam. I've always loved it. If you are able to see behind me, despite my poor lighting, it's Halo everywhere. And they made a very brave choice to not put Halo day and date launching with the Series S and X. And man, it seems to have paid off, because the energy surrounding this most recent re-reveal has just been stellar. And I can't say enough good things about how they've handled 95% of what they've done in the last year and a half. So cheers to them. And in that 5% they screw up, Sam, I mean, like, they own it, and I appreciate that. As a customer, I appreciate that.
Yeah, like you said, they really did, especially whenever you say they own it, they really did own up to it with the Xbox Live move, because that was one that the news hit immediately, tons of backlash, because like you said, there is absolutely no purpose for Xbox Live or games with gold to exist in 2021. And personally, I think that it has crossed a threshold that games with gold almost does damage to the Xbox brand, because of its comparison and really the contrast to PlayStation Plus, that although they're very different services, because it would be a more appropriate comparison in terms of value to compare Game Pass to PlayStation Plus, just because of the quality of games you're getting, taking the amount and quantity out of it from the Game Pass side. But all that's beside the point. Game Pass is the focus for Xbox. And this Xbox Live Gold and the games with gold is just kind of muddying the conversation. But they owned up to the issue, and they owned up to the fact that they should not have, kicked that price up. And I'm sure the conversations are being had right now about potentially discontinuing Xbox Live, what that looks like. We've seen free-to-play games truly go free-to-play, where you don't need a subscription to play Fortnite anymore. Warzone, totally free. And with the Series S, that really is the most affordable place to play free-to-play next-generation enhanced titles. And that's a really powerful win that is so much more powerful than any kind of small amount of incremental income you'll generate from Xbox Live Gold. In terms of the E3 show this year, to your point with Bethesda, from beginning to middle to end, you saw Bethesda sprinkled throughout. And, I'll cite what I believe Paris said on the most recent episode of the Xcast. It didn't feel like Bethesda was being pushed into the Xbox show and kind of inserted in this kind of awkward way. It felt like they were truly at home. And, you open up with Starfield, like you said, huge words, Xbox exclusive. You cap it off with the vampire game Redfall, where that's just this new innovative looking title from Arcane. you see what we knew was coming, you see something entirely new. So you see kind of a continuation of the legacy, and then you see innovation. And I think that these two things really showcase the reason that Microsoft spent $7.5 billion, if I remember correctly, on Bethesda and really on that entire opportunity to provide not only legacy value through games like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 eventually, and all these other games that are going to be exclusive in the future, but also on these new titles that we haven't even seen yet. And I think that is super powerful for building up the momentum behind Xbox Series X, S, and now PC and Game Pass on the cloud.
Agreed. And the idea that that cloud, the S, the X are available, and we're starting to see the games that will be leaving Xbox One behind on the hardware side, I'm thrilled by, with the caveat that they are well into development of getting xCloud to run on those older machines and keep players in the game longer. There's just so much to hang their hats on, and a massive undertaking. I'm so proud and impressed of the geniuses there that I have no right to be, but love the idea that we're not going to leave anyone behind, and that's cool.
Definitely. Cool. Let's go ahead and shift into that, actually. That's one of the topics that we had lined up for tonight's show. With cloud gaming, it's become such a big part of the conversation, not only through this generation, but over the last few weeks. I'm sure you saw earlier this week, Series X server blades are starting to go in. Those 1S blades are out for certain games. So it's probably looking like an announcement in the next couple of weeks or months about this full rollout of Xbox Series X compatibility. The Xbox One is getting support. I think Microsoft Flight Simulator has been confirmed for support, and then you also see talk about Starfield and others in interviews. And like you said, that's kind of keeping that last generation hardware relevant. It's keeping it as a part of the conversation. And for those that did jump in with the Xbox One, they still have the opportunity to get more bang for their buck out of it. And then with the browser stuff, you've got a lot going on there. So with all of these elements coming in, what are your thoughts on Xbox Cloud Gaming and how it fits into Microsoft's bigger strategy?
It is their strategy. It is their strategy. Sooner or later, hardware is going to go the way of the dodo, and they have doubled down to reassure players with, I would argue, an older or more traditional mindset of wanting to have the console in their entertainment center, and I respect that wholeheartedly. And in truth, I kind of do too. But the way of the world has changed, and 8 years ago, I wanted to own my games physically. The idea of having a disc right now makes me want to throw up. I love having my digital library available to me. That's not a reality for everybody. Data caps and speeds and whatnot are all there. But this digital cloud-based gaming future cannot be avoided and should not be avoided. They rolled it out on Android. They're working hard to get it working. That's a terrible way to say it. They're working hard to see that it shows up in Windows space. And they've really taken Apple to task at making it show up on iDevices. And not only are the games available there for you to Bluetooth your controller to, they're adding touch controls. And at first I was very tepid with the idea. I was like, oh, this is stupid and dumb. I'm not a fan of the idea of touch controls. They work. Minecraft Dungeons with touch controls work.
That's the game that I've experienced the most with touch.
It's wild. Streets of Rage 4, which I'm not good at all. I should be good at. I am not. I can't do that with a controller, Elite controller. I could hack the game and still screw up. But it plays great with touch controls 95% of the time. They need to get it up to 99% of the time, and they're clearly doing that. I mean, like you said, they're swapping out the 1S blades for Series X blades, and that just sounds cool.
It does.
And I'm thrilled with it. I knew I was going to find a way to bring it up by accident. I'm currently enjoying the Marvel's Avengers game, much to the chagrin of many people, which is amusing to me. But that game is doing very well on PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
Well, that surprised me because I didn't think people really used PlayStation Now. and its vendors, and so it's like a weird combo. It's doing very well there. The delivery of cloud gaming is going to places and bringing audiences in that you would not expect, and it is going to be a key method for how they enter into the Asian market. I mentioned Japan earlier. Japan is but one small country with a much smaller gamer base than some, say, India, where xCloud has a huge, massive potential, and they're working to see their games being brought there. Consider South Korea with one of the fastest web infrastructures in the world. They have no need to have hardware. But that's why you're seeing that Kart Rider game and the Crossfire X multiplayer element. Those are huge over in Asia. That's why you're seeing Microsoft partner with these studios and work to enter the Asian market, not just Japan, not just via hardware, but via xCloud. And that is it's awesome. It should not work as well as it does, and it's just stunning.
Yeah. One thing that I always bring up in discussions, and I agree with everything that you said, especially when it comes to Microsoft's opportunity and their strategy that they're pursuing in different markets outside of the US and North America. I always consider cloud gaming the accessory experience for me. I compare it kind of to the PlayStation Vita with the PlayStation 4, where it is an option. And, there are some games that released on both. You also had the remote play option where you could experience games through your PlayStation 4 on the Vita if the TV was taken, which is something that some people use cloud gaming for. But you couldn't take a Vita and replace a PS4. That's just not, these are not one-to-one comparisons. And for me, and like you said, to your point, cloud gaming is 95% there. And depending on your connection, you could be getting a 70% there kind of experience. It's very reliant on your internet. Like my internet at work, ironically, I work in IT. Not sure why that's the case. Not as good as my internet at home. So the experience I get differs greatly there. But it's on the way. And with these servers getting upgraded with the Series X technology, I think that's going to do wonders for the quality of the experience you get. I look forward to seeing these 120 hertz phones with Series X server blades and a really good connection. Can you run 120 frames per second games on the go?
You're not. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Well, say you're not far off from that, and you'll see that within this generation, the ability to do so comfortably. But you and I don't think are the xCloud market. I mean, I can now, in this stage of my life, comfortably afford a system, comfortably afford a monitor to display it on well, and I'm not competing for a TV, right? I'm not competing for a monitor. When I was 14, I would have been. xCloud would have been the answer. It would have been the answer because at 14, no TV in the room, didn't have money for the latest, greatest console at the time. And my brother and I would be fighting over the rare opportunities we could play our 2 systems back console that we had. xCloud would have solved all of that. And I think that's who it's for. I mean, I teach middle school, and all but 2 out of 119 in this past year had mobile devices. All but 2.
Yeah.
And they gamed on them constantly. And their gaming experience ranged from things like xCloud down to, I don't know, the Match 3 games that are popular right now.
Yeah, your Candy Crushes and whatnot.
Right. But the majority of them were real games, not just Fortnite, but like I'm thinking there's the Marvel RPG that's coming out, stuff in that vein. Full experiences that if we had them on N64, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, PS2, we would have been happy with. And so there's a future there. I just don't think it's meant for me. I think it's meant for, the kids that I'm teaching in my classroom.
Yeah, no, and I think you've got a great point there. And even, from kids in your classroom to my girlfriend who plays Genshin Impact, where she's on the go all the time playing this very in-depth console experience on her iPhone. I think that to be able to have that cloud gaming experience delivering stuff, like I said, she loves Minecraft Dungeons. That's a really good option to be a good route to get her in the gate. And then we had the announcement today in that Polygon discussion that we had earlier, where Kim Swift from Google Stadia has been brought on to develop experiences specifically that exist and are catering to those that are playing in the cloud. And so I think that's another interesting element where not only do you have these Xbox experiences transferring over into cloud experiences, you also have these unique games that are built with cloud in mind, whether that be mobile, browser, television, with streaming sticks, which are now a part of the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Xbox Ones, wherever you're playing, it's just a different kind of experience. And I think to see Kim Swift coming over from Google Stadia shows dedication to it. I think that, like we said
Mm-hmm.
earlier, cloud is a big part of the strategy.
Mm-hmm. A big part, and it's Kim Swift is a really good pillar for this conversation, right? Like they're bringing somebody with experience in that realm. But I didn't know Kim Swift from anybody until 2 weeks ago, and I started reading about it, and that has happened so often in the last year and a half, 2 years, where I'll see the headline, such and such is coming to work at Microsoft for this or that. No clue who they are. And then I read it. I find out about their resume, their clout, their experience. And I'm like, man, that's a lot of talent to bring in. And that consistently has been happening. And for that reason and that reason alone, I'm encouraged to know that it's not just the game title. It's not just the fact that, Kim Swift's being mentioned next to Kojima. It's that Kim Swift's name is now known by people for the right reasons. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what Google tried to do with Stadia before.
Yeah.
Not that they got cold feet, but they saw the investment that was going into building this cloud gaming infrastructure and trying to cultivate a community around it. And I think they started to kind of reevaluate their investment and then pare back. But like you said, with Kim Swift and these other people that have come on over the course of the past couple of years, really, it shows that they are very good at what they do, both at Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
and the people that they're hiring. They know the tools they need to achieve the goal that they have, and they're making these investments to make it happen, from Bethesda coming on board and that big acquisition, to these hirings like you see with Kim Swift to really build out these unique experiences. They really do have a grasp on who they need. The people that they hire have a grasp on what they need to do, and collectively between admins and the people and the talent that are making these experiences, they're getting it done.
Right.
And that's super exciting. Now, I will say there's a lot of excitement around E3 2021. I see a lot of awesome games coming down the pipe right now. And I think that things really started for me with the Medium earlier this year, but they've really got to follow through, on the conversations that they're having and the
Mm-hmm.
expectations that they're setting, because these games
Right.
still have to come out.
Yeah.
And with Halo Infinite, I'm, the number one guy in line, whenever it's ready to roll. Not that we stand in lines anymore. This is not 2008. But, like, I'm ready to go, preloaded. I can't wait to get it going on day one. But it's still got to be a good game. They've still got to
Yep.
deliver, because you do have to compete with God of War. You've got to compete with Horizon. You've really got to show that these investments that you're making in this generation of Xbox that you've cultivated and made is worth getting invested in. And right now with Game Pass, it's already worth it. But, we need the games. And so I'm excited to see them fulfill my expectations. And I hope that they certainly can.
I think that in most cases, you will be happy. I think that you will. We've seen them make a concerted effort to ensure quality for their games. And again, I go back to the idea that they launched games that were not healthy, or not in healthy state. State of Decay 2, Sea of Thieves, and Master Chief Collection. All three of those launched because they were very content light in terms of AAA IP, and they had no exclusives in general, right? They launched them. They didn't go well when they came out the gate, and they stuck with them. Crackdown 3 had its own issues. They got that game out the door, sure. But since then, they've really worked hard to see that they're doing acquisitions, to bring in the right people, to say the right things. And again, they delayed their biggest title of the decade because it wasn't ready and it wasn't right. That's cool. That says something. And I think you'll be... let me rephrase this. The quality that I see recent releases like Gears 5 Hivebusters, Forza Horizon 4, and the expansions suggests to me that there is a new mindset going about there. Have fun, make it worthwhile, make it worth the player's time. We've got money, don't worry about that. My hope is that continues. We'll see if it does. Who knows? at any point, but I think there is enough to look forward to there that we should be hopeful at the very least.
I totally agree. I'm very hopeful for it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. To your point about the Master Chief Collection, that's why I bought an Xbox One. Like, I picked up an Xbox One to play the Master Chief Collection because those are some games I had not at that point ever played the original Halo because I grew up a PlayStation kid. And so I had played Halo 3, I had played some Halo 4 in high school, but I wanted to go back and get those original experiences. And, we all know the server issues that were had. We all know the connection issues that were rampant. But over time, as they have repaired that game, without the Master Chief Collection being at the forefront of the launch of the Xbox Series X and those enhancements that were there, the Master Chief Collection effectively, while it can never replace Halo Infinite and the significance that game in its full state would have had for a new generation, it did a pretty good job of filling the gap.
You're right. And credit to them for that. And I think that's leading comfortably well into their next iteration with Infinite for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of primed the pump. My question that I have for you, and this goes to something else I wanted to discuss tonight, when it comes to PC fitting into the overall space, I know you've probably heard and been a part of the discussions as well, where Game Pass for PC is not treated as, a second-rate kind of subscription, but it certainly doesn't feel like it gets as much focus as the console version. How do you think Microsoft is treating PC today, and do you think they should change anything about how that strategy is currently?
That's a good question. They are treating PC incredibly well. Incredibly well. Age of Empires 4 is coming out. If you go back into the Game Pass for PC catalog, it is ripe with titles, big titles. I think the reason that gamers like you and I probably aren't losing their minds at it is simply because it's not our area of expertise, our area of coverage. There's not a lot of Xbox podcasts that are going to spend time on PC. It exists, it's there, and they really do treat those customers well. But I don't know that they travel in the same circles, or when they do travel in the circles that I'm with, PC's not on their mind. I will make fun of every PC gamer in the world for their driver updates and their Excel, TurboTaxing and whatnot. I will make fun of all of you nerds. But really and truly, I think that they are treated well. It's just that there's not a lot of them, if I had to guess. But the question is valid. I just don't think I don't think that it comes up because we don't see them. I feel like I'm dancing around that awkwardly.
No, I know what you mean, because I feel like I used to be a big PC guy in college. I've built 3 PCs in my life. I've got a relatively powerful gaming PC, but like you were joking, I got tired of driver updates, and I got tired of, compatibilities and resolutions. And I always felt like I was the, chasing the carrot on the end of the stick, where, I buy a 1080 Ti and then a 2080 comes out and then a 3080. With an Xbox, I've got the best Xbox on the market right now. And when the next one comes out, I'll buy that one, and then I don't have to worry about upgrades. Like, I've got the console experience right now. But there are, plenty of PC players out there, and with today's announcements around Windows 11, you've got Auto HDR coming into the gaming experience. There's a revamped Game Pass library, and Xbox app streaming is getting baked directly into the Xbox experience on PC. I think they're making a lot of steady improvements, and I think the focus at the beginning of the generation was and should have been the console players, because those are like you and I, where we're discussing things on podcast. We are the, mega fans that are repping the brand and what it's doing, not just as, fanboys or anything like that, because that's not the air that I want to give off.
Sure.
But the excitement around what Microsoft brings to gaming as a whole, that's very significant. Yeah. And so I think that as console regulates, as console hits this steady trend of quality, now you start to see, a lot more of a focus on building up that PC space. And of course, with an entirely new operating system launching hypothetically this fall, it's the perfect opportunity to replicate that revamp that you saw with Xbox through Windows. And I think that you'll be seeing a lot more in the months ahead in terms of bringing it to parity with the console experience.
I hope so. Gaming's for everybody, no matter where you are, you know?
Definitely. And that's a big part of the Microsoft strategy going forward. Now, one question I have for you. We have, obviously, there have been many more than one question in the show. But a question that I've got for you with Summer Game Fest semi kind of wrapped up, you know, like it feels like we're starting to wind things down. E3 is in the past. We have EA Play coming up. Rumors are flying about this Dead Space situation, a potential rebirth of the Dead Space franchise, or a potential rebirth of a legacy EA game. What do you think's coming, and what do you think we will see from EA Play?
I hope it's Titanfall 3. I hope it's Titanfall 3. I really want Titanfall to come back. I do not know what EA has to show for it. I'm sure they're going to talk a lot about their sports titles, which I will tune out. I do not, and I say that it sounds like I'm being flippant, and I am. And I am being flippant because I don't think they treat their sports teams and their like the developer teams well. You know, 9-month development cycle, quick turnaround, bugs and issues pop up in there all the time. But because Ultimate Team and the Madden equivalents make so much money that they will ship them and send them. So I'm sure we'll see some sports stuff. I hope we see some Titanfall news of some kind. I would imagine you see some Star Wars nods or teases or something. I've heard, and when I say I've heard, I have no insider knowledge. What I mean to say is I've kind of just seen on the interwebs, right, that Jedi Fallen Order 2 is not close, which surprised me because Fallen Order was so quick from announcement to release. I was just surprised by that. But nonetheless, I hope we see some Star Wars stuff. There are credible rumors floating around about Dead Space Remastered or a Dead Space 4, something within the Dead Space canon that would be happening. Right now, EA is just up in the air. And I will double down. I just want Titanfall. I want Titanfall.
Yeah, Titanfall is one that I think it's time for it to come back because Apex Legends and the other battle royales that have come out in the past few years, they're marketing machines. You know, with Warzone, you see the next Call of Duty prepping for a reveal within their game. I mean, it's this Inception kind of marketing that they have going on. And with Apex Legends, you see stuff in the code. I think the newest hero or legend, I guess is what they're actually called, has a Titan ability. You might know more about that. I'm not following along with the Apex Legends. Okay. But Titans are obviously a big part of the Apex Legends universe because they're shared universes and whatnot. So I think it's a great time to bring that back. Looking forward to checking out Dead Space potentially if the rumors are true. I played Dead Space 1 earlier this year through backward compatibility and EA Play, and I loved it. I need to start on Dead Space 2 since it's, you know, the first horror game that I've ever really played that I enjoyed on that level. I totally see why people love it. But with your discussion around sports games, I'm in agreement with you that I feel like they're just kind of churn and burn. I'm sure those devs have some stories from the battlefield. No, like you said earlier, no pun intended, of really trying to crunch these games out and get them ready to go. And I think this year, while Madden 22 was a next-gen game, I think this, or I should say, like, what year is it? Pandemic time has crushed my brain.
While 2021.
Yeah, while Madden 21 was the first next-gen version, I think Madden 22 is going to be the real next-gen version because now they're focusing on, obviously last-gen still a part of the conversation, but I think there are more resources into next-gen gaming. Will it come to EA Play on day one and by connection Game Pass? That would be big for Madden. Is one that comes to my mind as a big benefit there. But we will see how that goes. Excited to tune in. And like you said, I'm a huge Jedi Fallen Order fan, so my hopes are that maybe a game could be close, but I would not be shocked to see it too far off. You got to treat Cal Kestis with the respect that he deserves. So
That's right.
If
Put
it
some
takes
respect
3
on his
years
name.
of development time, then so be it.
Right. That's right. I agree. And I guess I didn't mention Battlefield because we'd seen it multiple times. Battlefield could not sell me more on the game. It could only sell me less. They could only take away excitement at this point, and that's a bad place to be in, I think, particularly given that you're launching a $70 game with all the discussions around that price point. And then the fact that Halo Infinite looks so good. We know Call of Duty has yet to make an appearance, but will probably in conjunction with PlayStation. It will be difficult for Battlefield to not have some way for players to jump in easily, because that $70 price point is, I don't think it's a big deal. To be very clear, that price jump is normal, it's expected. Games should be probably a little more expensive than they are, given the amount of work that goes in. And that I say that. Meanwhile, Bobby Kotick from Activision's getting this ridiculously absurd and offensive multi-million-dollar raise while cutting employees. When I say games should be more expensive, I believe that, but I believe that the funds and the profits are not evenly distributed to those who make them. So, two separate discussion points there. I just want to be clear that I do think it's okay to have a $70 game. I do not think it's okay to be cutting jobs and paying executives when the developers are there grinding it out, crunching it out, and making pittance.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board with you. Not to get too off topic, but this is a thought that always rattles in my brain around treatment of developers. And I say this from a guy who is, this is as deep as I get into the gaming industry. I'm not a developer. I'm not an employee of any kind of gaming facility. But I feel like developers are pushed into this dream role that you get. It's this fantastic opportunity to work on a Call of Duty. So many people grow up idolizing these games and living in these games, and the opportunity to get on board is unfortunately almost a part of the compensation. Where you're so lucky to be able to work on this game. We should be able to cut your pay by X amount of dollars, and you just accept that because you get to work on Call of Duty. When somebody asks what you do, and the same goes for Battlefield, where you get to say, I work on the next Battlefield, or I'm developing Madden. That's such a cool statement that you see, almost a devaluation of the job itself, which is super unfortunate. And like I said, I could go on for hours about that kind of thing. But to your point about Battlefield, I agree with you. Last week I discussed with Joey Ferris from Game Explain, who is totally averse to the idea of a $70 no campaign Battlefield. But then you have people like me where I look and I think, cool, Battlefield 4, but newer, and then I'm totally on board with a $70 purchase. So, that's one of my most anticipated games of the fall. It always was, and it will be going forward, assuming the game, like you said, continues to look good, because there's only, you can only take away from my excitement at this point. But I did discuss on another show that this holiday we have the potential for the ultimate trifecta, where you've got Halo Infinite with sci-fi shooting in this sci-fi adventure. And then you've got, hypothetically, supposedly, a World War II Call of Duty, and then you've got a modern Battlefield. So no matter what you want, there's something out there for you. And, with a Halo, it's included with free-to-play elements. Warzone is a free-to-play element. Battlefield doesn't have a free-to-play element. So I think EA definitely has a lot to prove to get people on board with a price tag like that, and without a campaign. That's super difficult to swallow for a lot of players.
A lot to prove, and odd because one of their most successful franchises is Apex Legends, a free-to-play game. Yeah. And so it's and they should have learned a lot of lessons from Battlefield 5, and I think they did learn a lot of lessons from Battlefield 5, clearly in the way that 2042 is showing, but it's a lot to watch there. I know that I'll be picking up Battlefield, excited for it. The question is, how long will I play it next to Halo Infinite and some of the other heavy hitters? And who knows at this point, because they don't need to sell me. They need to sell the used, the young ones They got to sell to people and pull them out of Fortnite, Apex, Warzone, etc. And that's, you see that Halo's working to bring multiplayer to free to everybody, regardless of Game Pass. There's a lot of speculation as to what EA is going to do between now and August ahead of their launch in, is it September?
I think it's October 23rd, I want to say.
I bet you by the end of August, we'll know if they're going to shift anything around. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping to learn more, but I don't want to take up all of your evening. I do want to round out with one final question. Out of everything shown between the Summer Game Fest and E3 and all of these announcements that have been had, you know, if you're choosing 3, you can choose 3. You're choosing 1. What game or games are you looking forward to the most this fall, now that we are hitting the, you know, believe it or not, coming up on the 1-year mark of the next generation of Xbox?
Let's see. Right now, I would say Halo Infinite is easily number 1. Without a doubt, Halo Infinite stands tall above the rest because I am just a diehard Halo fan. Again, apologize for the poor lighting, but behind me are stacks of novels and comic books for Halo. I'm reading Shadows of Reach right now, and it's fantastic, and anyone that's interested in Halo Infinite plotlines probably should take a look there. I cannot say enough about Halo Infinite for sure. Beyond that, I'm thinking here, when does fall start officially? Does October count in that one?
I consider fall to be anything from really August and September all the way through the end of the year. Whatever you think fits in that time frame.
Okay. All right. So I think my next choice would be Forza Horizon 5, and that's amusing because the big knock against Xbox was that they leaned on Gears, Forza, and Halo. Well, Halo Infinite and Forza 5 look different. They feel different in terms of vibe, and so I can comfortably say I'm looking forward to that. And then you got yourself a toss-up between games like The Gunk or Back 4 Blood or Aliens Fireteam or Psychonauts 2. I don't have a comfortable third because there's so much left to learn about a few of them. But easily Forza and Halo stand above them. I have questions about Treaders and Scorned. We'll see what happens. I know the Anna Crucis is coming out. Again, I just talked to that developer and he was so positive that it's uplifting to hear what they have to say. But let's say Back 4 Blood. We'll say Halo, Forza, and Back 4 Blood for right now.
A solid collection of choices. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with having the rotating third chair. That's totally a good option as well.
You have to answer too.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I'm looking through and I've got phone calls that are coming in. Sorry for that. But if I had to choose 3 games that I'm looking forward to the most this fall, definitely, like you said, Halo Infinite is number 1. Not only because I'm excited, but because, you've got your 20th anniversary of Halo and Xbox. And so between new stuff that I am sure will come to the Master Chief Collection, some of which you're already kind of seeing, sprinkled in throughout the year, and the excitement around Halo Infinite and the deep connection it has with the Xbox brand, there's just so much there to look forward to. But like I discussed earlier, Forza Horizon 4 won me over. I've been looking forward to Forza Horizon 5 since the moment that I heard some rumors about it. And so I'm looking forward to that one. For the third, I'm really looking forward to 12 Minutes, I think is going to be one that catches my eye because Willem Dafoe is just on another level when it comes to not only his acting and stuff like Lighthouse, but and of course everyone's favorite Spider-Man, but additionally his voice is just so defined, and I think that the experience 12 Minutes is going to deliver. It won't be for everyone, which no game is for everyone, but it certainly looks like it's going to be one for me. And then I'm also comfortably curious about The Gunk as well. I think that's one that I'm still unsure of, but I'm comfortably cautiously optimistic about it. So I think there's a ton to look forward to there, and I'm looking forward to, with Game Pass, being able to really dive into a ton of these and so many more that I'm sure are yet to be announced. It's a super exciting time just to be not only an Xbox player, but just in general into gaming. There's so much to look forward to.
Agreed.
So to round out the show, go ahead and give us the quick rundown. Let us know where to follow you, where to find you, where to listen to you, because you have been a fantastic guest. And it's great to finally meet you and talk to you. And I feel like I'm talking to one of the podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis. It's great to be involved.
Well, it was an honor to be on, and as we talked about before the show, thank you for not giving up on me. He reached out a little while ago. My schedule was just so hectic, and I'm grateful that you would give the grace to let me come back on now. And so I appreciate that. To anyone listening, you can find my show, The Xbox Expansion Pass, on any and all podcast services. Just search Xbox Expansion Pass. It'll pop up. The audio files also go over to YouTube. It's not a produced thing on YouTube. But if you prefer to consume podcasts there, it is there for you. I feature interviews from all over the industry. I mentioned Chet Falasek of the Anacrusis. If you have heard of the game Riftbreaker, I'm having those developers on. I'm speaking to them tomorrow at the time of this recording, and they'll be on Monday's episode. And I'll also have a special guest host that many people in the gaming community who maybe listen to radios and have a gamer tag might recognize. So that's exciting. And you can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost.
Very nice. Yeah, definitely follow Luke. He's a fantastic podcaster, and he's always got really cool interviews with people around the industry. And like you said, people with gamer tags that may be on radios coming up on this week's episode. That's super exciting. And I'm super, excited for you to have that kind of opportunity and the discussion that you'll have there. When it comes to the Riftbreaker, by the way, one I dove into, really enjoyed during the demo event that was going on. That was super cool to check out.
Nice.
But thanks again for joining me. And for those that are listening, thank you for checking out this week's episode of Xhibition, an Xbox podcast. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You can check out the show every single Sunday, and we will have a rotating set of guests on in the weeks ahead. And occasionally you'll have a one-off show where you're just stuck with me, but it is what it is. But until next time, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode.